about motherhood. 1 minute, you're mom of the year.
I love you, Mommy.
Then the next, not so much. From bath time to bullying, from potty training to puberty, parenting is full of challenges. But one thing is for certain, you are not alone. Welcome to Modern Mom Probs. I'm your host, author, mother, parenting expert, Tara Clark. Join me while we tackle today's modern mom problems. Alexa, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to chat with you.
I am too, because Mama's tired. I am tired. I feel like we need to talk about all the sleep stuff.
Yes, I would love to. And this applies for, I work with children ages 0 to 6, but I have plenty of older children that parents have followed my tips and it has worked for them as well. So parents of any age, children are welcome.
I love that. How did you get into being a sleep consultant in the first place?
I had a child that never slept. It was really rough. I was really sick throughout my whole pregnancy. So I kind of entered motherhood tired and sick and had a really rough birth. And, unexpected things happen as they do in childbirth and pregnancy. And I remember being in the hospital and he was not sleeping. I was not sleeping. My husband was not sleeping. And the nurses, God bless them, they were so sweet, but they were just like, this is normal, like this. And so I just kind of was like, okay, this is just my life now. And that sent me into a little bit of postpartum depression and anxiety, and just the anticipation of not being able to sleep almost made the times where he was actually sleeping, I wasn't able to sleep. Like I was just anticipating his next wake up. And so he would wake every 2 to 3 hours for the first 6 months of his life on a good night. Sometimes, and it would take him an hour. It would take me an hour to get him back down. So I was going, for 6 months with broken 4 hours of sleep a night, if I was lucky. So I found sleep training, and I followed a program that was a course, and I really liked it, but it was missing that like human interaction, and that every kid is so different. And so, I would follow the course and something would happen that was not in the course. And I'd be like, okay, well, what do I do now? What do I do with this? And so it just felt very overwhelming to me, especially as somebody with anxiety, like wanting to do everything perfectly and, not wanting to harm my bond with my son and not wanting to hurt that attachment and not wanting to leave him with, lasting trauma or whatever. And so I wanted to make sure I was doing everything correctly and by the book, but it was challenging without a person to talk with. So I decided that I was going to get my sleep training certification so that I could be that for moms. And I got my postpartum doula certification as well so that I could understand more about the hormones that moms go through after birth. And having lived it firsthand, I knew what it felt like, but I wanted to know, the science behind it, what we can do to help support moms' bodies through postpartum and beyond. And so, that's how Mama Matters 2 was born.
I love that. I always say it's important to be the friend that you wish you had when your babies were newborns. And you really are that person, Alexa.
I love that. Yeah, I completely agree. And it's, when we walk through things that are challenging, it's a lot of times I feel like because we end up using that to help somebody else. So I've found that a lot of times in my life, but especially with this.
Yeah. No, it's so important. I remember when my son was born, my brain felt like it was on fire, like literally felt like it was on fire. It felt like it was like mush, like a mushy fire, hot dumpster fire. Yeah. And that was due to lack of sleep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And some parents are really lucky and they get great sleepers, and I love that. But it's hard to imagine it unless you've walked through it. And if you haven't gone months with very broken sleep, it's just, I have I will go to events that are not primarily moms and they're like businessmen or, people that don't have kids yet. And they're like, I'm confused. Like, what is your job? Why do you do this? Like, what is the need for this? And I'm like, talk to me when you have a 4-month-old who hasn't slept since they were born. And then you'll know why I do what I do.
Yeah. It's like, tell me you don't have kids without telling me you don't have kids.
Yes. Or tell me you're the husband that never helped with the wife getting up all night and just has no idea. There's a lot of that too.
Yeah, I'm sure that there is. It's funny. My husband, his whole life has always sort of like struggled with his sleep. And then when my son was born and was also struggling with sleep, my husband was like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I passed that gene on to him.
Totally. It is. I feel like some of it is genetic and some of it is just random. But, some of us are just lucky to have the harder sleepers, and that's okay. We can work with it.
Right. No, it's true. So I mean, I have like 1,000 different questions because I feel like I could speak about sleep like all day. And I'll tell you really I was going to say, I was like, you probably do speak about sleep all day. When my son was born, I'll tell this story. And it's one of those things where when I look back now, I'm like, oh my God, how did that happen? How did I let that happen? So we came home from the hospital, and the very first night my son was home, like I was putting him in the crib. I was like, I read that they're supposed to cry it out. And my husband's like, okay, sure. Like, let's try it. This baby screamed at the top of his lungs for I don't even know how long it was because I just simply lost track of time.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, but they said it's supposed to be cried out. And so finally we were like, we can't take this anymore. So I picked him up and I held him. And again, keep in mind, he's only a few days old. He's like a week old. Because he was born on a Tuesday, but we were in the NICU for a few days. So by the time we got back, it was Friday. So let's say it was like Friday night. So it was he was only a few days old. And it was the first time we were home. And he was just screaming. So I picked him up and I left him sort of sleep on my chest a little bit. And then finally he stopped crying and I was like, oh yes. We were so happy that he stopped crying. And then I was like, all right, I think they didn't really mean cry it out for 4-day-olds. I feel like that was a miscommunication there.
And there was so much, I feel like, that just didn't exist until the past few years, honestly. Even when I had my son 5.5 years ago, there was way less information out there. And so I think the more that we learn and the more that it's becoming public knowledge what sleep training is and what lack of sleep can do to a woman postpartum or even, the whole family, honestly. But I think that there was just so much, you don't know what to do. They hand you this baby and you're like, what do I do with this? And you've never done it yourself before. And they're trusting you with this whole human. And if they're screaming and you're not sleeping, how are you supposed to know what to do? So you don't know what you don't know. So that's, I feel like that's a mistake that could have so easily been made by so many parents and probably still does because you don't know.
No, you don't know. Like I said, it was literally our first night home with him as parents. And we're like, my husband and I are looking at each other and we were like, what do we do? He won't stop crying.
And why did we do this to ourselves?
And why did we do this to ourselves? And then I thought to myself, is this how it's going to be with a cry it out and this and that? And so I was like, no, I'm picking up. Yeah, is this normal? I'm like, no, I'm picking up this baby and I'm going to hold him. And guess what? That's exactly what he needed. He just needed to be held. And like I said, eventually he fell asleep. And then I think eventually I put him back into the bassinet. And again, he's literally 4 days old at that point. And so ever since that night, we had him in the bassinet in our room for months and months. And I can't even think of how long, such a long time until he couldn't fit into the bassinet anymore. And then obviously then we put him in his big proper crib. But I'll never forget that night because we were just scrambling. We were such newbies. It was so wild. And again,
everyone is, and that's so normal. And I think that people especially moms, the mom guilt is real. And it's of course, I had many moments like that. I had no idea. Now I know a lot about sleep. I don't know everything, but at that point I knew nothing. And so I was just going into it blind. And I think that it's super important to do research, yes, on sleep, and, listen to podcasts or take a course or work with a sleep consultant, but also mom's intuition is always going to know best. And your intuition kicked in at that point and you picked him up and you were like, this feels right. This is what he needed. And I always say, especially even on discovery calls with new clients, potential clients, I'm like, is this still like, if their baby is bed sharing and they're like ashamed of that and they're like, I didn't know any better. I didn't know what to do. And I'm like, is it working for you? And they're like, no, it's not anymore, but it was. And I'm like, great. Okay. That's where I can help, because if it's working for you, keep doing it. You're that baby's mom. You know best. I don't know best. I know about sleep. I don't know about your baby. And so moms really do not get enough credit for their intuition and how much they should follow that. And then, when it's no longer working, that's when I can help, and that's when I can step in and we can work on something together that feels good for both of you, baby and mom. Yeah.
That totally makes sense. And I remember he was probably maybe like 4 months old at this point, where we tried sleep training and it worked. Yeah. I think there was a book, and I'm totally going to butcher the name of this. I think it was something like 12 hours by 12 weeks, something along those lines. I
haven't read that one. There's a lot of books like that, though.
And again, don't forget, like, my son is almost 13, so he's 12 and a half now. So any of these books are like, 12 years old. But at the time, that was a huge lifesaver for us. And so whether it's that particular technique or a different technique, it was like you get them to sleep like 4 hours and then 8 hours, and then 12 hours, like you just keep adding like 4 hours onto it. And it was a game changer for us. The sleep training gave, this is going to sound so dramatic when I say it, but I'm going to say it anyway. The sleep training like gave us our lives back, because we were able to sleep and think straight and function in all of those things. And so that was huge. And I remember once my husband's friends started having kids, like his work colleagues and stuff like that, he was always telling people, like, you have to get this book. Like, it's like 12 hours by 12 weeks, whatever. And we started it late because my son was already 4 months old by the time we started it. And the way like the book really is, it's like you're supposed to like have them sleep trained by 4 months. Didn't work. Yeah. If that makes sense. We were behind, but it didn't matter. Like it worked. And so I want to ask you the question of like, why is sleep training important? Why is sleep training like not selfish? Like all of those things.
Yeah, I think, like I said, sleep training is important when what you're doing is no longer working for you and your family. I have plenty of close friends that co-slept with their babies until they were 4. And that's what worked for them. And everybody slept great. They never did any sleep training. I have other friends that their babies were sleeping 12 hours through the night right away. Like it's all over the spectrum. And yeah, my best friend's baby sleeps 16 hours a night. Some nights, like she's just like rock star sleeper, naps 2 hours a day, like since.
Does she know how lucky she is?
She does, because now her second child doesn't sleep. She's like, I thought I did something right. I didn't. It was just luck. So
totally
anyway,
luck.
Yeah, we're working on the second one right now. But yeah, I think so. When it's not working anymore, sleep training can be a really helpful tool. There's a lot of different ways you can do it. You don't have to follow one certain method. Some methods are a lot faster and some are more gentler and take longer. And I work with a lot of different methods, but I have my favorites. And I'm kind of somewhere in between, where I'm doing something that works, and it usually takes about 2 to 3 weeks. Some sleep consultants push like cry it out, where it's like in extinction, where you're leaving them to cry and not entering the room until the morning. I will never promote that. I will never do that with my clients. But the way that I do things is kind of, it's not going to be this, there's very gentle methods you can do that take months, and that's also okay. But what I kind of do is somewhere in between, where there is some crying. I feel like there's crying with a lot of things in life, and there's pushback for a
Sure.
lot of things. As a 13-year-old, I'm sure you're getting pushback from him.
I sure am.
they will fight us on a lot of things throughout, growing up. But the first thing that we can, if that's the first thing we teach them, is how to sleep well through the night. That's super important. And not only for their brain developing and their health and their mood during the day, their appetite during the day, all of that stuff. It's also so important for the mom and for the dad and even like other siblings in the house. It's just when one person in the house is not sleeping, nobody is. And so especially parents that are having to either drive to work or work from home, or even stay at home moms where they're having to, drive other kids other places, and we all have to live our lives. And how can you do that? How do you expect somebody to be able to do that on 3 hours of sleep? It's just not sustainable. And it's not, nobody should like sleep. There was a torture method that they used to use in like the army or whatever, I don't know, somewhere they used to use this and torture soldiers by making them stay up for days at a time. Like that was a form of torture. And that's what it feels like as a new parent.
It really did. That's what I'm saying. My brain was on fire.
Yes.
It literally, my brain itself hurt from lack of sleep.
Yes. And it hurts your relationships. It hurts your work. It hurts your mental health. It hurts, for me personally, it hurt my bond with my son. I felt like I couldn't bond with him until I felt like a functioning human. And I thought it was just never going to come. I loved him and I was very protective of him and anxious, but I didn't feel that like peaceful love and connection until we were sleeping. And I was like, there it is. That's what I was missing. And again, like you said, could sound very dramatic, but it's true. That was my personal experience, and that's not everyone's experience, but I come across a lot of moms that feel the same way.
Yeah, that does not sound so out of the ordinary to hear something like that. No, I agree. It just like when I'm even thinking back now to that time, I could almost feel it again, like the brain on fire feeling, because it is not a feeling that I would ever want to go back to at this point right now. But you know what I was going to ask? So we sleep trained my son. It was a little bit of cried out here and there, not much, just a touch of it. Mostly, like I said, it was the 12 by 12 hours by 12 weeks, although we started it at 12 weeks. But he became an excellent nighttime sleeper until the age of 3. And then we had sleep regression.
Yes.
So is that common? Do you hear that often? And 2, what do you do about it?
Yes, I do hear it often. A lot of my clients I've been doing this for 3 years now, so I'm kind of at that stage where a lot of my clients are now, their kids are 2-3 years old. And sometimes they'll have regressions where we have to work together again. That's pretty rare. Usually it's just we need to make a few tweaks and then they're back sleeping again. But I was lucky enough to have firsthand on-the-job training with my son, who was an excellent sleeper from the time I sleep trained him. And then, let's see, when did he turn 4? Was that last year or was that 2 years ago? No, that was 2 years ago. So 2023, he turned 4. Mm-hmm. And right around the time that he turned 4, he went through a major regression and he was waking up all night. And at the same time was outgrowing his crib. Finally, he was like 2 weeks away from being 4. And I kept him in that crib as long as I possibly could. He loved his crib, not a fan of change. And so finally, when he was like physically outgrowing his crib and also after 4 years decided now was the time to start climbing out, I was like, okay, well, it's time. Like I've been putting this off. I need to put you in a big boy bed. So that was part of it, was moving him to a big boy bed at the same time as his sleep regression. And regressions happen because their brains are growing and they're learning a new skill. So it's actually a really good thing. Like I'm not a huge fan of the term regression. Like it's actually more of like a progression. but it still is not fun to deal with, especially when they're waking up all night. But there are absolutely things you can do. And especially if you have a good sleeper to begin with, like that good baseline, it is easier to get them back on track and sleeping again through a regression. It's common for babies to just have a night or two of rough sleep when they are going through a regression and then get right back on track without even having to do anything. My son, we did have to kind of gently sleep train him again to teach him to stay in his bed. And it took a few months with him because I had to do it in a way that worked for him and his spicy personality, and in a way that felt good for us. And so we did it very gently, because at 4, it does take a lot longer than a littler baby, because they have their own feelings and they can express them, and they are vocal about it.
They are not shy about expressing their opinions at that age.
Yeah. So I work with toddlers all the time that it takes a week or two, but more often it's like 3 to 4 weeks that it takes, and that's okay, because we do have to do it a little bit gentler and slower and have them on board with the process, because I'm never going to be the one that's going to just shut the door. I had so many people tell me, a sleep consultant, just shut his door and lock it. Like, he can, he's fine. He's safe in his room. And that felt so yucky. Like, I can't do it like that. It just felt wrong. And that goes back to mom intuition. Like, it's just, maybe that works for some kids. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure it would work. I don't think it's the most effective thing that you can do, but it just, it kind of teaches them that they're not supposed to be seen or heard, and they're supposed to just stay in their room. And if they have an issue, deal with it yourself. And that's just not what I'm about. So we did it in a way that he was learning through the whole thing. And we had to change tactics a few times, which is common too, because again, every kid is different. And one sleep training method that works for one kid might not work for the next. And so, dealing with that firsthand, I was kind of reminded why I started sleep training and helping other moms in the first place, because I was, going through a jag of really good sleep for a few years. And then
that's why I asked the question, because the same thing happened to us. Like, we were sleeping really well. Once we sleep trained him, like I said, at 4 months old, I mean, we had probably like 2.5 years of like really good sleep. And then all of a sudden, once he realized that he could get out of his bed and then walk to our room, then it all changed.
Yeah. And it normally does. And I'm coming out with a podcast episode this week on crib to bed transitions, because it's so important and, can be challenging, but also can go way smoother than, like, a lot of parents just put it off because they're, me included, because it just seems so intimidating and like such a big change. But then you get to the point where you have to, because they physically have to, and you just do it. And it is challenging, but there's things that you can do that are gentle and that are, supporting them and where they are and where their little brains are, and in a way that makes sense to them. And it works. It might take a little while, but it works. Yeah.
That sounds good. Yeah. I feel like we could have used your help on that.
Yeah.
Because I feel like the toddler part was more challenging, as you alluded to. It's more challenging having to sleep train the toddlers than having to sleep train a 4-month-old.
Yes.
And even now, I don't know, sometimes my son will stay in his bed. Sometimes he doesn't stay in his bed. Sometimes it's, musical beds. And so it really depends on the day, and depends on, what happened during the day, or did he hear a noise and he got scared and then he had to come in, like all of those different types of things. But what are some of the tools at your disposal that you use with your families?
So do you want me to talk about babies or like toddlers?
Babies are good. Let's start with babies and we'll evolve to toddlers.
Yeah. So I think like when we're talking about a baby that is not yet ready to be sleep trained, I don't work with babies until at least 5 months, preferably 6 months. That's like my sweet spot. But I work with as young as 5 months. And the reason for that is because at 4 months, they do go through a sleep regression where they're just learning so much and their sleep cycles are becoming adult sleep cycles instead of newborn sleep cycles. So they are learning so much and that's when sleep can go down the tube. But we kind of wait for that little regression to like do its thing and then we can work together and fix it. But one of the things that I teach families before I work with them, so, you know, as soon as they bring them home to from the hospital until they're 5 months old, and honestly, any age baby, you can do this, is the stop and wait. Because so often, especially with a new parent that has never experienced it before, newborns are loud, they're noisy, they make so much noise, even if they are completely asleep. I have a video, I got it on video. My best friend's daughter, I was holding her and she kind of like cried in her sleep. And most people, like not a big cry, just kind of like a whimper. And she was real little at this point. So most people would just automatically jump to get her and pick her up and, you know, feed her or whatever. But I just waited and like literally 15 seconds after she never opened her eyes. She was completely asleep. And so more often than not, parents are actually waking up their babies when they're little. If they're full on crying, you'll learn the difference. If they're full on crying, of course, get them, feed them, comfort them. But if they're just making like little whimpers or grunts, give it a minute or two and see what happens, because half the time they go back to sleep. So that's a really big one that doesn't take any sort of, you know, sleep training. It's just something that you can implement. Just give it a little bit of time. Don't, especially anxious moms like myself, like we kind of rush to jump and respond right away. And so it's helpful even with a 5.5-year-old to sometimes just take a beat and, okay, let's, you know, step back. What do they actually need? Are they actually awake? If not, then, and sometimes they do open their eyes even, but yeah, it's wild. They will be totally asleep and sound awake. So that's fun for new parents trying to figure everything out and responding to every noise. But yeah, that's something that you can do right when you get home from the hospital even.
It's probably that the babies are dreaming about how they were crying earlier in the day.
Right.
And they're just like reliving the crying that they already were doing.
Yes. And their sleep is so restless. Like they're just so grunty and, you know, they've got their reflexes going everywhere. And so anyway, I think, and swaddles are super helpful for that before they're rolling. But yeah, like swaddles are like my number one, like actual physical tool for sound machines, and swaddles are godsends. You have to have both, in my opinion.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. When my son was a newborn, and actually for the first several months of his life, every time I laid him down, he spit up his milk. Yeah. Like every single time. It was like clockwork. And so that was annoying because then I would have to like pick him up, change him, change his bed linens, put him back. And so like that was always another step to going to sleep because he just like spit up so frequently.
And you can, I mean, babies that do that, a lot of times it just takes them staying upright a little bit longer, which is so annoying in the middle of the night, but sometimes it can. And sometimes that doesn't work and they're still going to spit up as soon as they lay down. But keeping them upright a little bit longer, just like a 3-minute timer after they're done eating before you start trying to lay them back down. Because that can be a process also, just trying to, you know, get them to lay on their own in their bassinet. But it's any little thing that you can do to help with that process is helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's super helpful. Yeah. I keep thinking about all the times that I would lay him down. It was almost comical. Like, I mean, I could laugh about it now because
Right.
it's a
Not
long
at the
time. It was not funny at the time because I would feed him, I'd burp him, I'd wait a minute,
Yep.
and then put him down. The second he was horizontal, he would just be like, bleh, and you got to pick him up, change him, change all the beds and stuff. So that was definitely an adventure. But I want to talk about toddlers, though. What are some of the tools that you use for toddler sleep training?
So toddlers, there's a lot of things we can do. First of all, when moving from crib to bed, I really recommend having them help with that process. So help pick out the bed or the bedding sheets. If they're not quite old enough yet to like verbally tell you what they like, what they like. If they like animals, get animals. If they like superheroes, get superheroes, whatever it may be. This is not the time for like neutral, pretty aesthetic bedding. Like let them, like my son's first bedding was Luca from that Disney movie from Amazon.
I love Luca. It's one of my favorite movies.
And he looks like Luca. It's one of our favorites too. And it's so underrated in my opinion.
It is. I was actually just saying that the other day. We were actually in Disney World over the weekend.
Oh, I love
and I was like, there's not nearly enough Luca stuff going on here.
Nothing. There's nothing.
I know.
And so
it makes me sad.
And there was, one option for Luca bedding. That's what he wanted. So it's hideous, but that's what we went with because I'm like, you know what? You get to pick it. And so, getting them involved, telling them what's going to happen before just throwing them into a new bed, explain it to them, even if they're 2. Ideally, wait till they're 3 or 4, but even if they're 2, explain it to them in a way that they can understand and get them involved in the process. And then some other things that I like to implement, actually, one of them before you even make that transition, we started doing it when he was about 3.5. So I knew the transition was coming soon to move him to a big boy bed. And so we had a Hatch, we still do, a Hatch sound machine. But you can get a ready to wake clock you can get on Amazon, or you can use your Hatch. We just used our Hatch and it worked perfect. But if you don't have that, they have ready to wake clocks on Amazon for like $15. What that does is it teaches them, and you start doing this before you're in the throes of it. Ideally, of course, you can implement it at any time, but it does work really well before all the changes. And what you do is you just turn the light on a timer to turn yellow at a certain time. Yellow means, so you want it to be red during the night, and red also does not interrupt sleep hormones, and it encourages sleep, red or amber. So you want that during the night. And then we do 30 minutes. You can do 15 to 30 minutes, have it turn yellow. And that means that they are mom and dad are, it's almost time to wake up. You just need to lay in your bed a little bit longer. And ideally you would have this turn yellow around the time they naturally wake up so that they see that it's yellow. And you can practice with literally 2 minutes if you want. Like if your baby or toddler is somebody that gets mad within seconds of waking up and you don't want them to wait 15 minutes, then start in small increments. Start with a minute. Our son luckily was happy hanging out in his bed for 10 minutes. And so we had that turn yellow. And then as soon as we would go in to teach him what it was, we would just make a really big deal about, look, your clock is green. You did such a good job waiting for mom and dad to come get you. And so by the time he was in his bed, he knew what that looked like. And that did help him understand the concept of, when my clock is red, I have to stay in bed. When it's yellow, mom and dad are coming. It's almost time. And then green is, yay, it's morning time. You can get up, or mom and dad will come in. Yeah. And really celebrate it big. Like, you made it. You're awesome. You did such a great job. Even if they didn't, even if they were crying, tell them they did a great job. Yay, you did it. And so that just kind of, introduces that concept before they have free will to get out of their bed themselves. So you can do that at 2 if you wanted to. That's around the time where I feel like they start to understand it. But yeah, you could literally start, even if you don't have plans of moving them into a bed until 3 or 4, you could do it at 2 and just have that be part of your daily routine so that they're very familiar with it when you make that move.
I love that. I think that's super helpful. What would you say to the parents whose, let's say, 5-year-olds, 5.5-year-olds are coming into their bedroom in the middle of the night because they could get out of their room, walk over.
Yeah. And that's so some kids, I was just talking with another mom about this, where it's like some kids, like even if they are great sleepers and they know what to do, they like need reassurance in the middle of the night. So my son hears noises a lot, even if it's not, he's very scared of thunder. And so he'll think he hears thunder and he'll run in, or he'll have a bad dream. And what we ended up doing was we had a family meeting, and, you know, at 5, 6 years old, they totally understand that they need to stay in their bed at that point. And so and another thing you can do too in that family meeting is introduce a bedtime pass. And what that is they have this physical piece of paper, and they are allowed to get out of their bed one time from the time you put them down, not one time, you know, at bedtime, and then one time in the middle of the night, and then one time early morning. No, one time from the whole time your clock is red until it turns green. You have one time to get out of your bed or call for mom, or who, you know, whatever their form of getting a parent is. And potty is excluded from this, but obviously, if they start needing to pee like 7 times during the night,
they have to pee, and then they need more water, and then they have to pee again.
Right. So potty is generally excluded from it unless they start getting smart and tricky with it. But you can implement that in a parent meeting where it's like, okay, you have a bedtime pass and our son, it still sometimes needs to get up once a night because he had a bad dream, or he just needs, you know, a quick prayer, or he needs. I always set him up with water and everything that he needs like that. But sometimes he just needs reassurance, and that's okay. And I think parents see that as a lot of times, well, my kid is not sleeping great because they still wake up once in the middle of the night. And that's pretty biologically normal for kids to still, if it starts getting more than once and it's like you're up all night. And even still, I don't love when he gets up once a night. And he doesn't now most nights, thankfully. Probably once a week, maybe he'll come in and need something, but it's very quick and right back in bed. But he has that bedtime pass in case he needs it. So that's something that you can implement, especially with those older toddlers. And sometimes they'll they take it very seriously most of the time, and they'll hang on to it until they really need to use it. And sometimes they just don't even use it because they're saving it, and they want to make sure they have it for when you need it. Yeah, they learn fast.
I love that idea of the past, because I've never heard that. That's the first time I've heard that. And that's like a really good trick.
I love it. We still use it. And it's easy to do, and it's free. You print out, like I made one on Canva. I have a blog post that has the printout for you on Canva. So I can send that to you to link or whatever.
Yeah, we'll put it in the show notes.
And that way you can just literally for free on Canva, just add your kid's name, and it says, you know, a blank name or a blank space. So ours says Carson's bedtime pass, and then it has little stars and little smiley faces, and he knows. And so, that's something free and easy, and you can implement that right away.
I love that. So you mentioned earlier about the clock that is red, yellow, and green. I wanted to ask you a question because I know certain colors disrupt sleep. My son has those little LED strip lights in his room on the top that's like the top of the wall where it hits the ceiling, if that makes sense. And lately, he's been leaving the green light on all night. It's like a teal almost, and I feel like it's not a great color for sleep. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, teal, yellow, blue, those are all, you see blue and you just automatically think sleep, but it's actually like blue and green, like those colors actually can disrupt sleep. And it's more the amber tones, like ideally like a dark orange, amber, red, pink, like those types of colors that actually disrupt sleep the least amount. My son was afraid of the red light, so we made it a dark pink, and that works great. But and then he has so kids can become scared of the dark at around 2.5 is when we see that being a thing. And so if you need to implement a nightlight, I would just make sure it's like an amber color. We have a rock lamp from Amazon that is just like a very slight amber color. They have night lights too that you can buy, but I do find that those lights can, and some kids it doesn't bother them, but for sure, and myself included, like if I'm in a hotel room and there's a green or blue light on a phone, I can't sleep. I have to turn it around. So it kind of, I mean, I think it just bothers some kids and some adults more than others, of course, but I would try to get them more like sleepy tones at nighttime and maybe have the more like green, if he can change them, have like more of the green tones during the day, and just kind of, it's hard when they think something's cool and fun. And
that's what it is. He loves this teal color. He has it like on all the time. It's like sort of a mix between teal and green, and it drives me bananas, but it's not my room. But I am going to say to him later today that I spoke with a sleep consultant, and she recommended putting on the red.
I'll be the bad guy. That's okay. Yeah. Red.
No, you're the professional. That's the difference.
There you go. Yeah. Because moms never know anything, right? Even when they actually are the professional. Moms know nothing.
Yes. They still don't know anything. So I'm going to ask you a question, Alexa, that I ask all of my guests, and I'm curious to hear what you're going to say. What do you think is the biggest modern mom problem today?
Gosh, that is a great question because there's so many of them. I think that the biggest mom problem today is parents falling for the lie that they need to keep up with what everyone else is doing and what other people are doing regarding sleep, regarding nutrition for their kids, regarding everything. They need to follow what they see and not their intuition. I think that if more moms followed their intuition, not only for their own children, but also for their selves, their health, everything, like if moms just followed their own intuition and not let the outside voices bring too much doubt and questioning to their brains, I think that moms already are changing the world, but I think that homes would be much more peaceful if you could just quiet. And it's so much easier said than done, of course. Like I turn to outside sources a lot for learning and educational purposes, but there's a big difference between, and I'm a big proponent, like advocate of sleep but plenty of people, it's just sleep training's not for them. And that's okay too. Like that is fine. I am here for when you need me. And so if everything in your gut is saying, I need to let this baby sleep with me until they're 5, and that's what's going to work for our family, then do that. That's amazing. I love that. If you're feeling like you need to cut out screen time, or on the opposite, give more screen time because you just need to and you're trying to get work done or whatever, like it just listen to yourself, listen to your own intuition and whatever higher power you believe in. I believe in God, like listen to his voice or whatever you believe in and your own voice, and you will go so far in parenting and just in life in general.
Yeah, it is. Don't try to be anyone else. You are the very best you, and lean into being the very best you and the very best parent for your children.
Exactly. You were given that child for a purpose and for a reason, and they are yours for a reason and yours to steward as you see fit. And that's what you're going to do. So,
yep. Absolutely. I love it. Alexa, tell everyone where we can find you and where we could learn more about the sleep work that you do, more about Mama Matters 2. Tell us all the things.
Yeah. So my website is just mamamatters2.com. It's MAMA Matters TOO.com. And then my Instagram is mama.matters.2, exactly how I just spelled it. And then I have a free guide and I'll send this to you as well, but it's in my link in my bio, a free sleep guide for parents that are struggling with sleep that need to implement something right now and might not have the funds to work with me or might just need a little bit of extra help. That is free for them to download. And then my website does have my services. I work one-on-one with clients and build a package that feels the most right for them and their family.
I love it. It's so fantastic. Thank you for dropping the knowledge today. Thank you for bringing all the tips and everything, literally from babies all the way up through elementary school.
I love it. And I love talking.
You're good at it.
So thank you.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of Modern Mom Probs. I hope you enjoyed our deep dive in today's problem with me, your host, Tara Clark. Join me next time when I'll be interviewing another great guest and tackling another modern mom problem. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us a review and a rating. As always, you could head over to Modern Mom Probs on Instagram and give me a follow, or check out my book, Modern Mom Probs, A Survival Guide for 21st Century Mothers, available online wherever books are sold. Well, that's it for today. See you next time, folks.